Teddy Cruz is going to the Supreme Court asking them to help Trump out to keep his name on the ballot. Now, no one wants to do this. I'll get into that because it's technically cheating to have a separate branch of government, the Supreme Court, weigh in on the legislature. It's not supposed to go that way. So be careful what precedent we set. I'm Doug. Welcome to Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Let's get into this real quick because this is a pretty stunning move by Ted Cruz.
So I am proud to endorse Donald Trump for president of the United States. I look forward to supporting him enthusiastically because I think it's time for the Republican Party to unite, for us to come together.
First, we're going to open on these headlines. Trump urges Supreme Court to allow him to stay on the ballot. This is the Washington Post. Trump urges the Supreme Court to keep his name on ballot, warns of bedlam if they resist.
They're losing in almost every demographic. Numbers came out today that are really very mind-boggling if you happen to be Joe Biden. And I think they feel this is the way they're going to try and win. And that's not the way it goes. That'll be bedlam in the country. It's a very bad thing. It's a very bad precedent. As we said, it's the opening of a Pandora's box, and it's a very sad thing that's happened with this whole situation. When they talk about threat to democracy, that's your real threat to democracy.
And here's New York Times. Trump urges Supreme Court to reverse Colorado ballot disqualification. And then here's a tweet by Ted Cruz. I'm proud to work with Leader Scalise and our fellow legislators on the Supreme Court amicus brief. That's just something they officially submit to the Supreme Court to defend the Constitution's separation of powers and the ability of the American people to decide who their next president will be. So this is weird. He's saying in the name of the separation of powers, we want the Supreme Court to tell the Colorado Supreme Court to butt out of the election. So they have to go to a higher court. When the lower court acts like a bunch of monkeys, like Colorado did and like Maine is doing, someone higher than them has to get involved. Here's House, Senate, GOP leaders urge SCOTUS to halt dangerous precedent and defend Trump's ballot access. The amicus brief claims Congress must pass legislation to enforce the 14th Amendment and disqualify a candidate due to insurrection. And then here's John Watcher. Just a little more background on it. Breaking news. 177 members of Congress joined Ted Cruz and Steve Scalise in amicus curiae brief filed to the Supreme Court in support of Donald J. Trump in the Colorado case, seeking to disqualify him from the ballot. Here's the official amicus brief. I'm not going to read all of it because, hey, that's like old English lettering. It says, on writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court of Colorado, brief of U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, Majority Leader Steve Scalise, and 177 other members of Congress as amici curiae in support of petitioner Donald J. Trump. And then here's the list of names, mostly, I believe, all Republicans. I'll just see any that I can see on here that are of significance. Mitch McConnell, there's Marsha Blackburn, there's Ted Budd, John Cornyn, Tom Cotton, there's Lindsey Graham, I see, Chuck Grassley, Josh Hawley, there's Ron Johnson, I see, John Kennedy, James Lankford, Mike Lee, there's Rick Scott, Tim Scott, John Thune, Tommy Tuberville, J.D. Vance. And then from the United House of Representatives, because it's a bigger body, you'd have much more names. Speaker Mike Johnson, there's Elise Stefanik. Here's the next page of the House of Representatives. Again, you guys can look at these names on your own. And then here's the final page of the House of Representatives. So a lot of people, I don't know if any of them are Democrats. I doubt they would, because why would a Democrat care about any of this? And then here's what was written. The Colorado Supreme Court issued an unprecedented, erroneous decision that President Donald J. Trump had engaged in an insurrection as described in the 14th Amendment and was therefore not eligible to be on the ballot in Colorado. The egregiously wrong decision will, if allowed to stand, wreak havoc on our election system and the very fabric of our constitutional republic. Good point. And they're right. You don't want to open this door, Democrats, because they will all instantly get Joe Biden's name removed from the ballot as soon as you okay this. And then here's the main bullet points of this brief. Congress, not any state court, plays a vital role regarding Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It is Congress that must pass implementing legislation authorizing enforcement of Section 3. So they're saying Congress, not a court, is to do this. And it is Congress that has the express power to remove a Section 3 disability even after an election occurs. For similar reasons, Section 3 determines fall within the political question doctrine because they are so clearly committed by constitutional text to another political branch, in other words, Congress. Section 3 does not apply to former President Trump because he's never previously an officer of the United States. That's the most important one to me. It states in that article that he can't be an elected official, but has to be an officer of the United States. There's a big difference in that. An elected official is Trump. Any officer of the United States could be any appointment. Here's the Colorado Supreme Court's decision lacks neutral principles and will lead to widespread deballoting of political opponents. Amen. It expands the definition of insurrection and engaged in past their breaking points and makes it much easier for enterprising partisan state officials across the country to cherry pick parts of the opinion below to come up with contrived definitions of engage and insurrection to disqualify their opponents. And that's exactly what the Colorado Supreme Court did. That's exactly what Maine did by one unelected or one official. One person got Trump's name off the ballot in Maine. And then here's the statement from Majority Leader of the House, Representative Steve Scalise. President Biden has based his reelection effort on the notion that he is safeguarding democracy, but he and his radical allies are attempting to undermine the central component of the democratic process, the people's power to choose their leaders through elections. Not only does the Colorado Supreme Court have no authority to remove Trump from the ballot in the 2024 presidential election, but the broad and ill-defined justifications they use can easily be abused in the future to block political opponents from assuming office by taking away people's choice. The Colorado Supreme Court is setting a dangerous precedent and subverting the will of the American people. They are the insurrectionists. They are anti-democracy. They are anti-election. The election's on the ballot, and the Democrats are trying to remove even that from the ballot. They don't even want you to vote on that measure. And so the Supreme Court's going to have to step in and set a precedent forever that a state court cannot take someone's name off the ballot using the 14th Amendment. I'm Doug in exile.